on this one today.
We did use your face, so.
Alright. Where are we going to put the microphone? Same as last time?
Yeah.
Here.
That way Ronnie's voice can
What are you
sound
doing?
masculine.
Okay. Are you gonna get questions on Instagram?
I don't know, Emma.
Only if you're looking.
You know what's gonna happen, right?
Well, how much?
Check 1 2.
Yeah, we got audio. We're just gonna go live at 3. We're not going early this time.
That's 27 seconds from now.
Okay.
We're live.
We should be live.
Hey, we're back. Episode 3. Hey guys and gals. I'm going to talk about a few commonly asked things today. Some engine related, some driveline related. So we'll give a few minutes for people to get in here, fire some questions off. But today, some of the topics we're going to go over are oil pumps, timing chains, lifter options, fuel, induction, weight reduction, and we're going to touch on some remote tuning as well, because we get a lot of questions on remote tuning as far as what you need, how do I do it, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to try to touch on all this stuff and hopefully shed some light on some subjects. Yeah, it's storming pretty good, Caleb. And it's 25 degrees outside.
27, actually. Okay. How many people's in here? 11.
16 on Instagram.
Okay. Can you pull it up on my phone?
It is definitely boost weather, that's for sure.
Joni Stevens joined.
I bet she has a bunch of questions. Our snow usually melts within 30 minutes from the time it hits the ground, if we even get snow. Sometimes you wouldn't be able to tell that by some of our drivers, though.
Cornell joined.
What's up, Cornell?
Heather joined.
Boo. Just kidding. Hi, Heather.
I couldn't get it now. No.
I might have to
Too bad.
ask those questions.
Okay.
Dan's going to have to be involved today. It's going to be legit.
I like to be legit from afar. Octane SS says, answer my questions first.
Okay.
So,
What's your questions?
he has no questions. He just wants you to
Oh.
answer them first. Ryan, go tune something.
That's what we got Ben for. Just kidding. Well, not really.
Jason joined. Michael.
That's-
Mikey. Alright, so you about ready to get started?
Yeah. I was going to see if we could, if anybody had any questions to fire off before I started just, running off. Some of the some of the common questions we get are related to Zach. Man, they've been rough on Mike today. Mike has been
Pretty
getting.
sure it's every day.
He's been getting roughed up today.
What's up, Dalton?
What's up, man?
Richard Kim.
What's up, Richard? Well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer. How much? I mean, really a lot with good tuning, and that kind of is going to tie into something I wanted to talk about today, which was fuel,
Read the
octane.
question first, so everybody knows what
Oh yeah, the question.
JD asked, how much nitrous can a stock LS3 motor withstand without blowing any internals?
I can tell you we have sprayed 325 to 350 range and been okay. You obviously, one of the big things is you have to have adequate octane, whether it be fuel system on the car or, usually we run a standalone fuel system, and on a nitrous shot that heavy, we would be on a direct port. You're past 200 on the plate, distribution starts getting a little funny inside the manifold. Don't recommend past 200 on the plate personally. Tune-up is key on the nitrous stuff, and it varies so much with weather conditions. You have to really stay on top of it. Spark plugs, you have to have the right plugs. There's a lot that goes into nitrous tune-ups, but with good practice and adequate octane, all the right parts and pieces, and good tuning, you can spray 300 plus without a doubt.
David Johnson asked, Ryan, what's next for your car?
Well, probably some safety equipment. Just looking at this year, I think I'm going to do some coilovers on the car. You just try to make the car a little bit more efficient. I'm going to try some things on the engine side of things to see if I can find a few more horsepower and squeak this thing down a little further. We'll see what happens.
Caleb Turner is asking, how do you feel about melling oil pumps? That's actually on our list for today.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. Oil pumps. The melling pump is a great pump. We use the 10296 on a lot of the LS builds, LS1, 2, 3, 6, anything wet sump, pretty much the 10296 is a good pump for. The 10295 is basically an OE replacement melling pump. The 10296 is high volume, and you can change the high pressure spring out in it. The 10355 pump from melling is a replacement that's for the VVT AFM engines because they have a little bit more demand on the oiling system, being the VVT and the active fuel management's controlled hydraulically. That pump is a little bit more output than even the 10296 is. All three pumps are great for their intended application. Aside from that, one of the best factory pumps you can use is the factory L99 10 to 15 Camaro oil pump, which is also used on some of the older 6.2 engines, the truck engines. It has a higher output than your factory LS3 pump does, and they seem to be less problematic. So,
in line with that question, one of the most common questions is, should I upgrade an oil pump?
Should you upgrade? That oil pump and timing chain, we get that a lot because obviously they're right there together. A lot of guys entertain this idea when they're doing a cam swap, and rightfully so. When vehicles that have higher mileage, especially, you want to consider that. I mean, I understand a lot of guys from a budget standpoint. Oftentimes you don't want to spend more than you have to get your setup right, but it's certainly a consideration when you're in there doing a cam swap. Oil pump, timing chain, higher the mileage, the more you want to consider that. 10, 15,000 mile deal. I'm not saying don't do it, but you're less likely to have any kind of issues at that low of mileage. But anytime that you're in there is a good time to consider it.
If it's within your budget, do it.
Absolutely.
Robert Austin wants to know if we mess with the V6 LFX Camaros.
Unfortunately not. We've dabbled with a couple of those. The problem is it's a little bit outside of our knowledge base. I mean, we can mess with it, but I don't feel like we're as fluent in that as we are with LS stuff. And secondly, the aftermarket support for that platform is just not very good. You get into a lot of custom parts. It just gets really messy real fast, and we just choose, to stick with what we feel like we're best at, which is the LS platform.
Tavoris Brown wants to know, how do you feel about small bore LS7 heads?
Love them. Our Max package on our website, that's something we messed with a good bit last year in development. They work well. In their intended application, we kind of look at that with what the customer is wanting to do. The LS7 heads, obviously a higher flowing head, they're going to want a little bit more RPM. The intake runners in the LS7 manifold, whether it be the factory manifold or the MSD manifold, they're a little shorter than the LS3 manifold. So everything about that setup wants to RPM more. So guys that want max effort power, that's where it's at. You're going to be able to get more compression because you've got a better valve angle. So you're going to be able to mill and retain adequate piston to valve clearance better without fly cutting. And you have induction options that you don't have with the LS3, and the head just flat out moves more air.
Caleb said a lot of guys spout online that running the high volume spring will actually starve the pan. Is that something you've actually seen on a typical street car application?
That's going to be more of a problem in like your F-body car. Has a smaller oil pan capacity. That is something to consider on that. Everyone's opinion is going to vary on that. But we run the 10296 on a lot of the LS3 stuff, but we've got 8.5 quart oil pans, so it's going to be less of a problem for us. A lot of the LS1 guys, and oftentimes we stick to the 10295 pump on those builds for that reason, because you don't want to move more oil than you can drain back. So
Kyle Shin is asking, would it do more harm than good to do a cam swap, heads, intake on a 5.3 in a truck with 256,000 miles? Said he just wanted to get a little more power out of the daily, not trying to be a race truck or anything like that.
With that kind of mileage, the little low lift cam wouldn't necessarily be any more stressful on the parts, other than typically a cam application is going to want to RPM a little bit more. You're going to make a little bit more power. So any additional stress you would see from the additional RPM or power would be really all you would have. As long as the motor's in good condition, you're probably not going to have a ton of problems. But once again, that's kind of at that point where if you're going through all this to do a cam swap, you might want to consider looking at some other things, freshening it up, at least inspect everything before you go that far. Do a compression test, leak down test before you tear it down, and let's see what the condition of the motor is before you invest that money.
James Charity is asking, with the SS4 no fly cut on a LS3 M6 391 gears, what's the chances with your tuning seeing over 500 wheel horsepower?
Chances are good. We've had some results, even independently at other shops, other tuners that work with us. That cam has made anywhere from 480s to 5.0s with stock heads. Typically what you're going to want is you're going to want to maximize your bolt-ons. An example, ported rod mounted intake, underdrive pulley, a nice set of headers, exhaust, and a good air induction. All those things will help obviously achieve that number, but that camshaft is certainly capable of that. Of course everyone's dyno varies, but our dyno 490s is pretty common on that camshaft with stock heads with the sporting bolt-ons.
Dalton's saying my setup is obviously very customized, but what would be your advised preload on the Johnson lifters?
Well, another great question, and you're going to get varying opinions on this, but we typically, anything that we're wanting to RPM pretty good, we normally will run the preload down pretty deep on the lifter. We want to limit the travel on that lifter plunger, so oftentimes we'll run these lifters 15 to 20 thousandths off of the bottom from being full bottomed out, just because we don't want that squish. You lose so much of your duration and your lift through deflection and squish in that lifter, which is one reason solid's such a benefit on the higher end stuff. But even on hydraulic stuff, running a short travel lifter or even conventional lifter stuff we've done with the GMPP, the caddy race lifters or whatever, you can sink the preload down pretty deep on those things, and limit your travel there, and it's very beneficial for higher RPM usage. So.
But the common response, but Johnson says we need to run this much.
Well, yeah, we just haven't seen any problems running that lifter that loaded with a lot of preload. Once it's bottom there, I don't really see anything that can happen. The only thing that's going to be if you have in your springs and your valve train set up, if you've got a heavy valve train, heavy rocker arms, or having to control a lot of mass upstairs, at higher RPMs, if that starts getting out of control, you may float the valve train. If it pumps that lifter up when it's bottomed out like that, the potential's there to run into piston to valve clearance issues at that point. And that's one reason I think that some of these people don't run much preload, because with less preload, if the lifter pumps up, if you float the valve train, you're going to have less chance for any kind of interference. But we typically are trying to set the valve train up with hollow stem valves or titanium valves on something that we're going to try to RPM a lot, when we're doing that heavy preload with the lifter. Otherwise, our typical cam jobs on your standard LS3 099, typical LS stuff, we'll run the preload 75 to 100 thousandths or so, which is a common area. That's usually about mid travel on most lifters. You're at a comfortable zone there.
You get any questions on Instagram there, Dan?
Octane did get his question, so to answer the first question from Instagram, gearing preference for SS2 supercharged cam for LSA swapped L99.
Probably a 345 gear. That's going to be a good all-around gear. Positive displacement isn't going to need as much gearing as your naturally aspirated stuff. So 345 is a pretty good common ground to get pretty nice gearing and not over gear the car, because the setup's going to make a lot of torque. You're not going to need a lot of gear, and the 6L80 already has aggressive transmission ratios, so I wouldn't go more than 345 probably.
And Raymond Cole wants to know if he would need new heads. If he was going to do a supercharger down the road, he's got milled heads and a thin gasket.
It depends on how much power you want to make, really. The CID head casting is a very, very robust head, and that would be a great power adder head. But that being said, we've had multiple builds. Even Kevin's car, when it had the F1A94 on there, we had those heads milled 20 or 25 thousandths. We didn't have any kind of issues with lifting the heads or anything like that. You would want to step back up. I would probably go back up to the LT1, LT4 style gasket. Aside from that, what little bit that you can actually mill the LT head, I wouldn't worry about that too much on most power adder builds, unless you were just doing something really crazy.
Was that it, Dan?
That was all we had.
Richard Kim's asking, can the LS7 small bore work well for the L99?
It can, absolutely. LS3 and L99 stuff. The bore, being the same size, they'll certainly work well on the L99 platform. That 4065 and up bore is where that LS7 Max style top end is gonna be best.
Jonathan Young is asking, on a 6th gen LT1 full bolt-ons, 100 shot of nitrous, what kind of routine maintenance for the nitrous?
Well, just keeping an eye on your nitrous filter. You should have an inline nitrous filter to catch any contaminants out of the actual nitrous bottle. And if your solenoids have screens in them, checking the screens on the solenoids, checking solenoid operation. The last thing you want is a fuel solenoid to not open and the nitrous solenoid open. In the event that you can't catch it being lean, you may run into a situation where you can hurt some parts. So really the solenoids and the filtration on the nitrous system are the main key areas.
Zach Collins, Chevy SS, E85, ID1050s, long tubes, Whipple 2.9, DSX auxiliary pump. It's running 13 to 14 pounds of boost on a 3 1/4 pulley as is. Is it worth it to upgrade to a Nick Williams 102 boosted, or should I wait for the next round of upgrades such as cam heads, etc.?
Positive displacement stuff, Whipple, LSA, Magnuson, it doesn't matter. Any of that stuff, anytime you can free up airflow into the supercharger, the better off you'll be. I think it would be a good move to go to the Nick Williams 102 boosted throttle body, and depending on how your air induction is, if you've got a smaller air induction pipe, the larger air inductions, 4 and 5 inch stuff, work best on that stuff for sure. You don't want a restriction in front of the supercharger.
David Johnson says, I know Brandon has talked to you about my car. It's sluggish, feels like it's not building any power. Everything we have done, still something wrong. Should we rebuild it all over again or just trash it?
I don't know. I mean, it depends. Depends on what you got going on, probably. I don't know. I'd have to get with Brandon and see exactly what you got cooking, but you certainly could go through and fix, repair what you got, or you may want to consider going to a 6th gen. They're kind of taking things over right now, I guess.
So I know weight reduction is one of our topics today, and Dylan Sierra is asking, what's some secret weight reduction tips besides the normal drag pack, seats, brakes, interior stuff on a 5th gen without it being totally gutted?
It's hard, but the areas that you're going to gain a lot from weight reduction are usually going to be areas that you're going to have to spend money to get. Wheels and tires. This is one thing I noticed. A Race Star is a great wheel for a lot of people and everything, but it's certainly not as light as a weld wheel. It's a cast wheel versus a forged wheel. Anytime you can reduce mass on wheels, tires, brakes, those are the key areas. Drive shaft. A lot of guys don't even realize how much weight difference there is on their drag pack. Say you got skinnies on the front. A radial versus a bias ply skinny, it's ridiculous how much weight difference there is between the two tires. We always run a bias ply front runner because it's so much lighter. Other areas to get stuff, weight out of the car, your passenger and rear seat, obviously that's almost 100 pounds of weight. From there, you've just got, what are you willing to take out? What, as far as creature comforts, what are you willing to do without from that point? Because you got your trunk carpet. You can do a lightweight battery. There's some batteries out there now that are less than 5 pounds, and they're fairly inexpensive. And the factory battery's like 40 something pounds, I believe. There's a lot of areas, but I would personally, I like to get our guys to try to focus on that rotating weight first. You're going to get more benefit out of that than you are dead weight on weight reduction.
Michael Angel asks, I have a 2016 Camaro SS. It's heads, cam, full bolt-ons. Currently have an MSD intake. Looking for more top-end horsepower. Would you recommend the high ram to increase the top-end horsepower, or would it not benefit as much for an NA setup compared to a boosted setup?
Well, the high ram's a fantastic manifold. You're certainly going to gain a lot of power upstairs with the high ram. It's not really going to start to benefit you until that 6,000 RPM plus area. It is going to extend the power band a pretty good bit, which is what you want in a naturally aspirated deal. Not knowing what your heads cam combo is, your camshaft may not be suited for what a high ram is going to want to be able to make optimal power in its RPM range. High ram is going to want to go well into the 7,000s. If you're not wanting to take the RPM range, 7,500 or so, you're probably better off with the MSD, because the MSD is going to offer better power under the curve below 6,000 RPMs. The MSD intake is going to outdo the high ram. The high ram is going to take over upstairs, and it just depends on where you're running your setup. But ultimately, you can make more power with the high ram if you set your car up to turn that RPM and use the RPM range.
JD asked, is the SS3 the best cam y'all have for a 2011 Camaro?
SS3 has been our tried and true 3-bolt cam. It's worked great. Within the last 6 months or so, we took our SS4 that used to be a fly cut model, and we kind of moved some things around on that and tested some things, and we've got an SS4 that is not a fly cut. You don't have to fly cut. And that cam outpowers the SS3 by a little bit. If a guy had an SS3, I don't think I'd recommend him changing to an SS4. It's going to be a lot of work for maybe 10 or 15 horsepower. It's not a ton of power difference, but a guy that's looking for a fairly aggressive setup from the get-go that doesn't have a camshaft yet, I would consider the SS4 no fly cut.
How much of a gain would you see on a 416 going with your LS7 small bores compared to your ported LS3 heads?
Well, that's a good question. I think you could see, and we saw this on a 416. We did a 416 with a max top end not too long ago, and it really, torque is about the same in that middle area with both sets of heads. Considering that the compression ratio is the same between both setups. The LS7 heads take over upstairs though, and being able to run that MSD manifold, you're going to be 20-30 horsepower stronger upstairs if you can build the combo around the LS7 head. We do a little different camshaft design for the LS7 head versus the LS3, and you can guarantee 20 to 30 horsepower with the combo right.
John DeGrassi asks, what power level on a turbocharged LS3 would you consider changing out the stock LS3 intake manifold?
Well, we've made a lot of power on a factory LS3 manifold. From a durability standpoint, you can run over 30 pounds of boost on that manifold. If you're keeping the RPM range in the 6,000s, not really exceeding 7,000, there's probably not much reason to change the LS3 manifold. If you're really working and wanting to make a ton of power and turn a little bit more RPM, beyond that, you might want to consider high ram. I know BTR has the equalizer manifold they're working on for LS3 stuff, which that should be a good one that's going to maintain some hood clearance. So there'll be some other options there. Hood clearance is the biggest thing for intake manifolds. That's the biggest hurdle for a lot of our late model guys to dance around. The right manifolds for the combination usually don't fit under the hood. So From a durability standpoint, the LS3 manifold is good for probably about all you're going to throw at it till you're ready to zip some RPM or just make a ton of power.
That kind of reminds me, I get a lot of people that ask on a boosted setup like that if they can run our port mod.
I don't recommend it because the stands are cut out inside the manifold, and while we haven't tested it in that extreme situation, we know right off the bat when you cut those stands out, you're going to decrease the rigidity of that manifold. Plus, the way we epoxy the bottom of the manifold to close those holes back off where the stands were, I wouldn't recommend trying that with boost. I wouldn't feel good about that.
What about with nitrous?
With nitrous, you should be fine, provided you don't have a nitrous backfire. When you have a nitrous backfire, you're going to have more problems than an intake manifold, though.
Brandon Broadway said, just letting y'all know the truck runs great. Appreciate the hard work and service.
Awesome. I figured that thing would like the E85, and it was nice to dial in some drivability stuff with that converter and that combo. Brandon's truck's a fun little combination on that 5.3, and very strong. 400. What do we make? 420 something rear wheel.
Yeah, 420.
Close to
424.
Yeah, it was mid 420s on a 5.3 with cam and heads and E85. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, next time we have a track rental, Brandon, you'll have to bring it out there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Or I'll take it out there for you. Just let me know. Richard Kim wants to know what's your opinion on E85 for NA only. Is he going to see any gains in a cammed LS?
Not a lot. Unless you're in the 11 plus compression range, the more compression you make, the more the E85 is going to be a benefit. At 10.7 to 1, you may only see 5 horsepower or so. It's cheap fuel. It's cheap, and it's a very durable fuel. It's going to take a lot of abuse, but it's not going to yield you a lot of gain without compression.
William Smash is asking about putting nitrous on a high ram setup.
Yeah.
How's that going to work?
On a high RPM setup.
Is that what I thought it said high range?
No.
So.
Yeah, it would handle it for sure. The nitrous, it actually may be happier with that because the lower RPM stuff is where you kind of have to worry, lugging an engine down a lot, especially in the mid-range around peak torque. That's usually where you hurt rods and stuff like that. Over advancing timing, creating too much cylinder pressure, especially on stock parts. High RPM stuff lets you get away with a little bit more for sure. Help keep some parts alive.
Dennis Butler said, we did y'all's heads, our VVT3 cam, E85 and 3-inch headers on 2016 Texas Blue Bonnet Camaro last year. Made 550 at the wheels. What do you suggest we look at next to take it up another notch without hitting nitrous?
If you don't have the MSD manifold, does he have the MSD manifold?
He didn't say.
If you don't have a ported MSD manifold, that's one area you can pick up some power. An underdrive pulley will yield you a little bit of gains. Aside from that, it's going to be hard with your combination to really get another big chunk of power without, changing camshafts or going through a lot of work over again. But I would certainly consider maximizing the bolt-on game. If you manifold and underdrive pulley, if you don't have those, you may see another 30 horsepower out of that stuff.
Andy Gates said, 04 four-wheel drive Tahoe with 5.3 with our low lift 2 cam, inch and 7/8 headers, no cats. What kind of power gains from 243 heads ported with TVSS intake, or a recommendation in that general area?
I think you can probably see 30 horsepower or so, but one thing you're going to have to take into consideration is the 243 head has a larger combustion chamber than the 5.3. So right off the bat, you're going to have to mill the head to at least get back to the same compression, or mill more and make a little bit more compression, because the 5.3s, they're 9.5 to 1 or whatever to start with. Compression is going to be your friend on that smaller cubic inch. The more you can get in there, up to, if you can get 10 anything to 1, it's going to be a lot happier for sure throughout the whole RPM range.
Josh Carroll says his turbo truck has been on our dyno, made 600 horsepower, but we ended it early to fix a few things before it went further. I'm now running into an issue with it intermittently going lean. It may go back to running
Stoic after all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that could be something tune-up related. It could be, have you checked fuel pressure? That would be the first thing to check, probably, to see. And is it, does it do it at the same RPM, or is it, what? There's some things to look at there, to see what you may have going on.
Caleb Bradley said he's in the middle of installing our LS3 heads on his vet. Can't wait to fire it up.
Awesome. You're gonna like the heads. It's a nice set of heads. They really do well for a factory casting.
Lon Rogers is asking if we have any experience with the Mazir electric water pump. Says he's looking to switch to one. Max NA build, car's a daily driver.
I think it offers some good qualities, in a max effort car, because you will be able to circulate the water pump and cool the engine down quicker as far as managing the temperatures at the track. Just raw horsepower gain, I don't think you're going to see more than single digit gains, 5-6 horsepower probably. The factory pump's pretty efficient, but getting a few horsepower and then being able to kind of manage your temperatures is going to be something for you at the track for sure.
Brandon Webster joined.
What's up, Brandon? Trying to sell some wheels. There you go. F-Body Fitment welds for sale. Y'all hit her up.
Chris Collins said tires. I have 18-inch wheels and 28-inch front tires. Want to run the Mickey Thompson ET Street R's, but they only come in a 27 or 29. What's your recommendations? L99 with 391s.
Well, knowing a little bit about your engine combination, I would favor the 27-inch tire, because you're going to have the RPM range to be able to use it. The 29 is such a big tire. We looked at one today, 315. What was that thing? 315/50 17. It's like a monster truck tire, dude. It was huge. It was a 29.5 radial for a 17-inch wheel, pretty much. I would go with a 27.
Chase Brown saying a little off topic from weight. These new DI engines, the valves don't get washed, so catch cans are a must. Which catch can is preferred or recommended for the Gen 5, 5.3, and 6.2 Silverados?
You're right. I mean, any catch can's a step in the right direction, but we use the Mighty Mouse catch cans on a lot of stuff. The quality's great with it. Fitment's good. Does David have a Silverado specific fitment? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
I know we stock the Camaro and Vet specific fitment units, the wild cans, and that wouldn't be hard to get on one of those trucks. They share a lot of stuff. So Mighty Mouse would be my first solution. If not, I would have to hunt around a little bit. And Elite, we do some stuff with Elite as well. They're good quality units too.
Josh Carroll said my boosted truck has made 600.
Fuel pressure injector.
It looks like the same question from a minute ago. Said I checked fuel pressure injector. IAT heat soak, sprayed the intake with starter fluid, no change. Any suggestions so I can get it back on the dyno?
Intermittent problems like that are tough. That's a tough one. I have to think about that a little bit. shoot me an email or give us a call up here, and we'll discuss that a little bit and try to narrow some stuff down before you come up this way. But intermittent problems suck.
James Zajac joined. Jim Robinson said, "What's up, guys?"
Hey Jim, how are you guys doing up there?
Brandon Webster said, "Can we get a couple of those nice GPI hoodies when we pick the car up?"
I imagine we can arrange that.
Julio Perez is in here.
What's up, man?
Highest stall size and recommended to go with for the stock 6L80E.
We run the 5C on a lot of our naturally aspirated stuff. It's been a very reliable unit. Stall speed, the flash speed is going to vary a little bit with the weight of the vehicle, the gearing of the vehicle, and what kind of power it makes. But you can expect to knock on a 5,000 RPM flash on a pretty salty setup with that converter. That was the MSD. No, Dennis on the Gen 6. Yeah, Dennis. Check us out on the MSD, and we offer a porting option for that too. And that's going to be some good gains with your cam setup, especially in the upper RPMs. You're going to maintain very similar torque throughout the middle, but you're going to pick up in the upper RPM range and extend that curve some.
Here's an interesting question. What's the highest horsepower we've ever seen on our dyno, and what car was it?
Anthony's twin turbo 5th gen, 1300 and damn, what did that thing make?
1380, I think.
It was 1370 something, 1380 range, somewhere around in there. 6-speed manual car. Larry Adams had a 4th gen, but we didn't really 6.0 turbo set up on methanol last year, and we didn't really engine or chassis dyno it very much, other than to just get some basic tune-up information to where we could go to the track. But those two cars would probably be up there. We've had several in the 1200s through automatics, but it's kind of where we're at right now.
Ashton is asking, should he wait for meth and add along with 5-inch intake, Nick Williams 102, ported blower, or add it now?
Add now, man. What are you waiting for? Let's do it. Car's here, ready to go. It all depends, Ashton, depending on what your timeline is and everything. But give us a holler. I mean, we can do it all at one time. Save a trip.
What cam would you recommend for a C7 with the A&A supercharger?
We favor some of our smaller naturally aspirated cams on some of that stuff. We've also done a couple custom grinds on some centrifugal stuff like what we had in Kevin's car, but none of them have to be crazy aggressive with it's going to depend a little bit on also the rest of the build, what supercharger you have, how much boost you want to run. Those kind of things kind of go together, but it would be a mild camshaft. It would be, our SS2 LT cam would be fine for that setup.
What's the max RPM you would suggest running on a 6L80E with SS4, ported heads, and a high ram with 5C stall?
We typically shift that combo with the ported factory manifold. Oh, high ram, I see. You can spin it. When I had the 6L80 in my car, I was shifting it at 7,900 RPMs. I didn't have any issues. Now, you may want to throw a scatter shield on it or a blanket just for precaution, because if something comes apart and takes your legs off, I don't want to be responsible for it. But I can tell you, I didn't have any reliability issues shifting the car right at 8,000 RPMs, and I did it for 2 years with a solid roller. So
the legs is weight reduction in it.
It is weight reduction.
Brian joined.
What's up, man?
What's the best upgrade for my 18.53 truck and keep the use of pulling it and all that?
Gears and flex fuel. Probably the two best. And the gears would be probably depending on if the truck's 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive. 4-wheel drive, the gearing gets pretty expensive doing the front and rear, but assuming that your truck probably is like my 17 5.3 truck has 342s, it's pretty good, but I have factory height tires and everything. Gearing and flex fuel would be the best places to start. You could get in between 20 and 30 horsepower just with flex fuel, setting all that stuff up in the tune. Headers, if you don't mind, making a little bit more noise, that's another good gain on those trucks. Just your typical bolt-on stuff, nothing crazy.
We got one on Instagram. How do I decide between SS4 no fly cut versus SS3 on LS3?
The deciding factor is going to be really performance. What are you looking for in performance? If you're wanting to go all out, if you race the car, if you go to the drag strip, if you're more aggressive with the car, go with the SS4 no fly cut. I mean, there's not a ton of difference in the camshafts, but there's enough difference that if you're favoring power, go with the SS4. If you want something that's going to drive just a little bit tamer, not much tamer, the SS3 would be a better fit. So.
Jeremy Dominic joined. Said what's up.
What's up, Jeremy?
Ryan, do y'all sell a Turbo 400 package for the 5th gen?
Believe it or not, we do. We just sold one to a gentleman a couple weeks ago. We do. We kind of. It's going to vary a little bit depending on the power level of the car and what we need in that, that trans build. And we have several options there. But yes, we do. We can offer everything for that swap, whether it be on a 6L80 car or a M6 car.
JD said, where can I find the SS4 install package for a 2011 SS?
It should be on the site, GuatneyPerformance.com. They're on sale, on our tax sale right now. And, I don't know if you have an L99 or an LS3, be aware that if you have an L99, you're gonna be doing a 3-bolt conversion, but you're also gonna need a DOD delete. I think we have those. Is that all bundled in one package now?
We have a package now that it's a cam package that completely converts everything over from the VVT down to
3-bolt
LS3 3-bolt setup
with the DOD delete.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. So it's on the
time
site.
cover and all that.
GuatneyPerformance.com.
Eric Hansen said, "Hey Ryan, thanks for tuning my new SS3 VVT setup on my 2010. Drag strip opens in 2 weeks up here in Oregon. Would it be cool if I send you another data log before I hit the strip?"
Absolutely. Send it on. I'll be glad to look at it before you go to the track. And also get me some data while you're at the track. That's the best place to do it, for sure, especially on the transmission side of things.
So Eric was one of our remote tuning customers, right?
Correct.
So we get a lot of questions from people who think that if they buy the remote tuning, that we're basically going to send him the same file we just sent Eric.
Yeah, that's a pretty common misconception. So the way our remote tuning works, whether you just buy the remote tuning service if you already have your hardware, or you buy the hardware from us, primarily this is on stuff where we're selling the hardware, but when the hardware ships out, it does not have a tune or anything married with that. The way this works is when you get the hardware, you install the software on your computer, you get everything up and running on your end, then you're going to read your file out of your car. If you have a handheld or something like that on there, I prefer you to put it back stock. Send me the stock files with your mod list, and then I build a file from scratch every time somebody sends something in. I don't have generic template files that I start with. I work off of your file that you send into me, and then we go from there. So nothing happens until you send me your stock file.
So what you're saying is everybody gets a custom tune and a custom product out of that?
Absolutely. I don't do the whole handheld thing, and sure, bolt-on cars aren't going to vary that much from tune to tune, but every car is going to vary some. Everything is 100% custom. We data log until it's right, till I'm happy, till you're happy, and it all starts from scratch with the file that's in your car to start with.
Brian said, I heard you guys had a 5th gen going to 8s recently.
Must be fake news.
Mm.
No. We actually did, and with the 4L80, which was surprising. I figured we would go in the 8s that day, but I didn't think we'd go 850s right off the trailer. I was pretty happy with that.
Lewis said, have you run an SS4 on a L76 6.0?
Actually, we've got a 6.0 in the shop that's got that exact camshaft in it, and my recommendation would be put, the SS4 is kind of a tight fit, so it's a lot of cam for 6.0. I don't know that would be my first cam choice unless I was prepared to fly cut, because if I'm doing this on a 6.0, I want to get some compression in this deal. With that, big set of heads and that camshaft, it's a pretty serious top end for a 6.0. That small bore kind of changes things a little bit.
That's a good question. Andrew Cameron, LS3 stick car with our SS3 stock heads, BTR 660 springs, rod mod, full bolt-ons, all the good stuff. How much are you leaving on the table with the tool steel retainers versus the titanium in terms of RPM capacity?
Very little. I mean, there's not a ton of difference in the weight there. It's one of those things where if you're buying starting out, I go for the titanium stuff. But if you've already got tool steel retainers, I don't know that I would spend the money to change. And I've seen some stuff. Not necessarily BTR stuff, but in some manufacturer stuff, sometimes the tool steel is a little lighter. But they're usually so close that there's not that much difference to worry about.
Ryan Smith said, I have a daily driven 6th gen stick car. I do not want any bucking, surging, etc. on the streets. What would be the best cam for me, matched with our ported heads, to offer the best street ability and still run strong at the track?
That's tough. Camshafts are a series of compromises. To get the stuff that's the strongest, you give up some low speed drivability. A lot of that can be kind of harnessed some with good tuning, but with camshafts, the more aggressive you get, the more you're gonna shift your RPM curve up, and at that 1,000 to 1,500 RPM range, most of them are going to have a little surge, and especially at light load. At heavier load, the bucking usually goes away. On your situation, if you favor more drivability than performance and you're doing the heads aren't really going to cost you anything from a drivability standpoint. I might would do you something from a custom standpoint on that, because even our SS1 is going to have a little cam surge at low RPM, so I might would occasionally we do stuff on a case-to-case basis in a situation like yours.
Got a couple from Instagram. GPI valve covers coming soon.
We got them
on the website.
They're on the website. Included. This is for LS stuff. They're the tall valve covers. They'll clear your adjustable rockers for whether it be a hydraulic or solid valve train. And they include the coil relocates too, don't they? Or is it an option?
It's an option to package it together. And we have some red ones now too that we didn't have before. If you look back through on Instagram, there's actually a few pictures of the red valve covers on there. And any kind of custom color is always an option too. If you're wanting to do some kind of specific color to match your vehicle or whatever, just give us a call or shoot us an email. We can always get you a quote on getting a custom color done. That wouldn't be an issue.
And what horsepower do your heads and cam 6th gen Camaros put down?
His cam 6th gen, it varies. Like you said, we had a customer in here commenting earlier. They had our SS3 LT cam with our heads. They made 550. While every dyno is going to vary, a solid setup like our track attack stuff like that, we made 580s.
We made 588 last time
on E85 with the compression bump just a little bit. Ported MSD manifold, underdrive pulley, a really well thought out setup you can get up there and knock on 600 rear wheel for sure. And we're still learning there. We're figuring some things out. 600 rear wheel is going to be attainable very soon.
Wesley's in here.
What's up, Wesley?
Richard's asking, would we be coming down to Louisiana anytime soon for a test and tune?
Hey, when it comes time to run a number, No Problem Raceway and State Capital are always a consideration of mine. And I have some friends down that way, so I always like sliding down to Baton Rouge. I just wish it wasn't so far. But yeah, we'll probably be coming down there. If we come this year, it'll be likely to be in the fall, though. But I can let you know if we come down that way. What's this up here? What's up? Cam heads. LS3 with a billet 475. It's not gonna need with that set of heads with LS3 heads. It's not gonna need a lot of camshaft. I would stay small. Probably our stage 1, no more than our stage 2 turbo cam on that configuration, Brandon. It's not going to need much with that set of heads.
Wesley said, "You goons."
He's just mad because he's getting rained on out there.
Well, I guess if it's raining, he can come pick his car up, huh?
He could.
Yeah.
While he's over there playing.
This is all Wesley and Brandon talking. I'm scrolling here. Would you use a SS4 for LS2 with LSA?
No, sir. What I would use would be our stage 2 or our stage 3 supercharged positive displacement cams. Those would be good options. I found, it may just be me, but every time I've played with the 6.0 with the rectangle port heads, they're a little bit more sensitive to cam combo than the LS3. We typically err to the smaller side with great results on the 6.0. So I would say probably our SS2 or our stage 2 supercharged cam.
Steve Glaze said on a LS3 with our SS4 no fly cut, should stock length push rods work, or do you suggest getting an adjustable push rod and checking?
Well, it's always a great idea to check, but we understand that a lot of guys aren't going to be able to do that. So with factory heads and no milling, factory gaskets, or even with a 40 gasket, we recommend the 7.425 because the base circle of the camshaft is a little bit different than a factory cam, and that puts our preload typically in that 75 to 100 thousandths range. So fortunately with the hydraulic lifter you've got a little area to mess with there. So 7.425 if you're not milled.
Jim Duffy said the E-Copo is on the horizon. Are you excited or sad?
Well, it is kind of intriguing. Not my cup of tea really, but technology's cool, and that's an interesting deal. It was weird watching that thing blast nines and you didn't hear anything going on the track. It was quite strange. I kind of dig it, but I don't know. I've got mixed emotions about it.
DeMarcus Calloway in here said, "What's up?"
What's up?
What suspension mods do you recommend on the 5th gen with over 500 horsepower? Should I just get aftermarket trailing arms and tow rods, or stock fine?
Well, what's necessary and what's recommended sometimes are different. You can go pretty fast on stock stuff, but tow rods, trailing arms, good bushings, the more you can keep that rear subframe and suspension tied together and eliminate movement, the better off you're going to be. Upper control arm bushings, that's one that a lot of guys don't do. That stuff moves around so much. It's a lot of wasted energy, and the basic bolt-on stuff like you mentioned, go for it. You're not going to hurt yourself by doing it, that's for sure. And keep in mind, if you're ever going to do a 15-inch conversion, you may want to omit doing anything with the control arm bushings because you're going to end up having to buy control arms anyways.
Mitch Ludwig's in here.
I can't wait for you to get it back either. That's going to be fun, I promise.
We'll hold on to it for a couple weeks before he gets it back. Brian said, looking to make some passes this weekend. Our club is renting out XRP this Sunday. Temps in the 60s.
That's going to be pretty good weather. I think just much like when we were at Memphis, I think if you can manage, carry some ice out there to ice that blower down. If you can keep the temps under control and keep everything cool, we already know how to do it. So I'm rooting for you.
DeMarcus said, I'm doing an LS2 with an LSA. I have the SS1 non-supercharged that I was going to run, but now I'm going boosted. Which supercharger cam do I need to run and be safe to make at least 600?
I mean, that's going to be kind of relative to how much boost, but probably and your torque converter, depending on what you're doing there. Like Josh Hubbard had mentioned earlier, quite similar combination. I would probably stay around our stage 2 supercharged cam. You're not going to need more than that to make that kind of power if you've got a 240 to make that kind of power with a mild amount of boost.
Diego Gonzalez said, what will I need to get closest to 600 horsepower NA from my 6th gen, currently at 502? Heads haven't been touched. Stock torque converter with a TSP mild cam.
Be satisfied with 596. I would be too if I were you. There's a lot that's there's a lot in that combination that's going to need to change simply because you've got a factory converter. To get to that power level, you're going to have more camshaft. If you've got a mild cam, I don't know what your cam specs are, so I can't 100% validate that, but it's going to take an aggressive cam, MSD manifold, headers, underdrive pulley, ported heads, compression, and all that is going to require a good torque converter. So there's a lot of things that it takes to get to that point.
Those of you that were watching on Instagram, our feed just cut off. I think we're limited at an hour, Dan said, on Instagram. So
I sent him a message to tell him to come.
We tried.
Yeah, come see us on Facebook. We're still here.
Diego said his mods are Cold Air Intake, the MSD Atomic, TSP Cam, DOD Delete.
Yeah. I think I might have messaged you a little bit last night, Diego. Like I said, just expanding on what I just talked about. You've got the MSD manifold, so there you go on that. But you're going to have to refine the setup a little bit. You're going to have a converter to be able to run more cam and heads and all that stuff to get. I mean, you're talking about picking up a lot of horsepower and actually aspirated. It's going to be a big move. Fastest vert. Steve Chris probably had the fastest stop bottom end LS3 Gen 5 convertible. I can't even remember what Steve went. I think he was right at the cusp of getting in the 10s, but I think he got tired of the vert life and moved over to a coupe.
DeMarcus said he's got a PTC 28 to 3200 stall. Will that work okay on the LSA?
It'd be perfect. It'd be perfect for that cam combo and that blower. It'll work well and still drive good.
Just a second, my thing's bouncing around here. Josh Hubbard said that his LS2 is over 600 on 93 and 12 pounds with a mild cam. Run the SS2 or SS3 and you will be there, like they said.
Yeah, Josh's car made great power on the Dyno little LSA G8 setup.
Alex Poole's asking when we're going to have the tubular K members available for the 5th gens. I had an email yesterday too asking about 15-inch conversion that you talked about last month.
I know. Look, this fab stuff takes time. I'm not a fab guy. I have sympathy for fab guys because they're creating all this stuff from scratch. But we've got good people in our corner working on some of these products. I can't really 100% say when it's coming, but
well, I told the guy he could buy one in 2 weeks. So
Well, he can. It'd be kind of a pre-order deal, but he's more than welcome to purchase it. The 15-inch kit will be first, and then this other stuff will kind of trickle down as we can get it done. But that's some components that that the Gen 5 Camaro community has needed for a long time. There's a lot of neglected areas there that we're going to try to touch on.
So Nick Hamza said on an L99, just doing a cam, should he stick with the VVT or do the LS3 conversion?
It depends. The VVT really on a max effort NA deal isn't going to do you a whole lot of benefit because you're going to have such an aggressive torque converter. But on the milder builds, the VVT is a nice thing to keep because it offers a little bit torqueier and more response in the lower RPM range than your 3-bolt stuff. And you get the VVT lets you kind of stretch that power curve, have a little wider power curve than a 3-bolt setup. Not a ton of difference at wide open throttle, but the VVT does have a couple of advantages on a daily driven combo that's not just a max effort deal.
Corey Cotterman said SS4 no fly cut, ported LS3 heads, forged bottom end. What kind of numbers should my car make with this setup, and how much nitrous can he throw on it?
That camshaft works okay up to a couple hundred horsepower. Depending on the compression on your forged setup, if you're at least 11-to-1, that car ought to make 520s and up. It's hard to say without knowing what your car may have baseline on a given dyno before those mods, but I can tell you that cam and heads setup, even on a stock bottom end deal with a little bit of milling and fly cutting, has made 530s on our dyno on a stick car.
So here's a question we get pretty often actually. Santi here said that he bought a Z01 fuel pump. Does he need to buy the Z01 fuel module as well?
Yes, because the SS module is still going to command the same pressure as it always has, which is going to be roughly 50 pounds of pressure at wide open throttle, 52 pounds, where the ZL1 module, the reprogrammed ZL1 modules command a higher pressure. So yeah, it is going to be needed to really reap the most benefits out of that combination. I see.
We'll just keep going.
We love you too.
Chris Jackson said, I would like to be 500 wheel horsepower.
I think he meant stop bottom end.
I think so. Said something about touching the bottom end.
That is going to be
in a G8.
It's going to be very, very solid setup to get there. Certainly doable. Certainly going to require a fly cutting and some compression. But I'm not going to say that it's not possible. It's going to be harder than an LS3 for sure, but it's worth a try.
Jason Beck said, what's a good torque converter for the 6L80, and do you offer a good tune?
I hope I do because that's kind of how I make my living. But we use Circle D on most of the overdrive stuff that we do. 6L80, 6L90, 4L80, whatever. Circle D has been great for us. Great service, great product, and our converters are kind of torque converters, kind of a custom deal too. So there's never really a one size fits all on a converter either. So depending on what you've got going on, it would certainly be a Circle D converter. What model? We just need to discuss that and go from there.
Nick said he already has a 4500 triple disc and 391s.
Yeah, that's a pretty good area on most stuff. Like I said on one of our earlier live feeds, converters are areas where a lot of customers under converter their car. They respond to more converter, period. Even a bolt-on car, 4,000 plus is where I would start personally.
Lawrence said, what size headers would you recommend for a max effort in a 416 build?
I can tell you I've made over I've made over 600 rear wheel on 1 7/8 headers. That being said, if I was buying a set of headers to go max effort on a 416, I would probably buy 2-inch, or if the budget allowed and I was really going max effort, I would go with a stepped header, probably 1 7/8 to 2-inch, which is that's a option that a lot of folks don't know with Cooks. This Copo header. It's a 3.5-inch collector, and you got several size options on stepped headers.
Yeah, I believe Cooks. I don't think it's listed on their website actually.
It's not. It's not. So that is also an option. Just depending on. Pretty good storm out there. Depending on what you're wanting to do, a stepped header probably is gonna be the most Mac Daddy setup. But if you just want a conventional header, probably a 2-inch would be what I would do.
William Cooper, with the complete SS3 package, can I upgrade to the SS4 no fly cut with only a tune, or will I need additional parts to do the upgrade?
Really all the parts of that package are the same. So aside from just the camshaft, otherwise you would just need some tune touch up, and it probably wouldn't even be a lot there. But yeah, those two things should get you right.
Ray said, "Hey Ryan, on the weight reduction topic, y'all know any good diet plans for me?"
Well, I don't know. There's several areas on your car, because your car is still pretty basic. You haven't really done anything in weight reduction. Brakes are huge, man. On a 6th gen, brakes are like 90 or 100 pounds weight savings, even on the Pro Street stuff. Somewhere around 90 pounds, I think. Wheels and tires, it's easy to scoop up a couple 100 pounds, 200, 250 pounds pretty quick, and then it starts getting tougher from there. As far as, I'm not a dietitian, and I don't know how big a boy are you, but I know Zach is definitely a driver mod for most folks. He's kind of a jockey. So,
is he?
He is.
Okay. Except his own
Chevrolet.
Yeah. Oh, Mike Nelway's in here.
What's up, Mike? Man, them boys have been rough on you today, dude. They've been rough. Brandon's on vacation. He's like in Yellowstone, just chilling out, just making memes and stuff.
Yeah, Mitch, I think we'll be able to take care of you. Yes, Carrie, that was thunder.
Yeah, I thought it's pretty rough out here right now.
Is there such thing as flowing too much air on a bolt-on E85 5th gen?
No. Anytime you have any kind of restriction up front, in front of that throttle body, primarily, we can see that on a data log. If you're going into vacuum, pulling vacuum at wide open throttle, it's never good. You need the flow. You don't want your engine to starve, that's for sure.
Richard Kemp said, "Do you use a line lock on your car, Ryan?"
I don't have a line lock. I really probably should. My rear brakes would love me more for it, but I haven't at this point. Probably because it weighs too much.
What, 2 pounds?
Yeah, whatever that comes out to. No, I don't have one, but we just did a line lock on Brian Mooneyham's car, and it worked great. So probably be in store for me in the future.
Andrew said, "I see the SS4 no fly cut trades a little exhaust duration for more intake duration compared to the SS3. Does that extra duration on the SS3 make it a little better for nitrous?"
Not necessarily. They're so close on spec. There's not going to be a ton of difference on what they're going to like on nitrous between those two camshafts. Exhaust valve open is pretty close between the two cams. I think just have to look at the exact specs again, because we do a ton of camshafts, but it seems like most of the difference was on the exhaust valve closed side, and that was simply for valve clearance to keep things happy there.
William Cooper, what's your opinion on exhaust cutouts? Are they beneficial at the track, or do you not really see any advantages with them?
Absolutely. We did this on Shane Mitchell's car.
Yeah.
SS3 VVT, our ported heads, pump gas car, typical bolt-on auto L99 5th gen, cam head car. His car picked up 20 horsepower or so on the dyno with the cutouts open. Obviously, the further upstream the cutouts are towards the header collector, the better off you're going to be. So yes, absolutely, there is power there.
Fritz said, "What's the best heads to run on a 6.0 turbo build?"
It depends. It's hard. Like your build, Fritz has the LS3 heads on it, but you can do some. You can make a ton of power with cathedral port stuff too. Larry Adams' car had some trick flow castings that were done. They were done by Frankenstein, and I forget what the intake port volume was, but it's still fairly small head, and that car made a ton of power. It made a bunch of power. So the cathedral port stuff is, I think I kind of favor it on a 6.0 because it's a smaller bore on the turbo stuff.
Jason Beck is asking about your email address.
It's Ryan@GuatneyPerformance.com. RYAN@GuatneyPerformance.com.
Max boost pressure on stock GM head bolts.
Not really relative to boost pressure. Boost pressure doesn't lift the heads itself. Cylinder pressure does. How much power you're making. So I like to get rid of the stock head bolts, on most stuff before we even get to 700, 750 wheel. In most situations on that stuff, you're already at least doing a camshaft. So if you're going to be boosted, I would consider at least ARP head bolts, if not studs. If I'm doing all this stuff at once, but I wouldn't go much further than there on stock head bolts personally. That's me, but.
On weight reduction, what is the work involved in running 16s or 17s?
17s are easy. A weld 17 by 10 for the 5th gen car goes over the Brembo brakes. There's no suspension mods needed. If your car is lowered, it is going to rub the control arm a little bit when it squats hard on launch, which you can kind of clearance that with a grinder. 16s are going to require some control arms or some control arm modification and brake modification, different brakes, which at that point, once you go beyond 17s, it's you just need to go ahead and go to 15s. Really, you're just better off.
Best throttle body size to run with SS4 cam package with Roto Fab and MSD Intake on 6-speed.
I'm thinking that he is talking on the Gen 6 car. We've seen good results out of the 95mm throttle body. Not saying a 103 is a bad choice. I just don't know that we haven't seen in this power level where the 103 has an advantage over the 95. At least where most cam head setups are.
What do you figure I'll add horsepower wise by purchasing your ported rod mod manifold for his SS sedan? I've got a tune, Roto Fab, Cooks, axle backs.
You'll probably be right there near 10 rear wheel. The cam setups usually see a little bit more. Of course, we're turning some more RPM with those. You're going to be a little bit less than what the cam cars see, and they typically see 12 to 15 or so.
And he said he's talking about the SS sedan. I had a guy messaged me on Instagram that ran one on his a while back, and on that port mod, once he put that on there, he picked up 0.2 in the quarter and 2 miles per hour.
Steve Chris at Camaro Fest, he had a stock manifold, and we put a ported and modded manifold on his car, and I think he picked up near a 10th, and he picked up a couple miles per hour as well. So there's some gain there. I mean, it works, and it's about as good as you can get on a LS3 manifold without going to a high rev, honestly.
And not having to spend $1,000.
Exactly.
Is retune required when switching exhaust? Currently headers, no cats, X-pipe, 3-inch cooks, but it's too quiet. He wants to go back to straight pipes.
That shouldn't really affect the tune-up. I'm not going to say it might not be a bad idea to have your tuner hook up to it and data log it just to verify, but changing what's going on from on the mufflers primarily isn't really going to change the tune-up.
Would you challenge a Copo Camaro one day, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Copo
Yes,
D?
NA Camaro, NA Copo, no doubt.
Fifth gen SS3 VVT, ported heads, the ported modded intake, and a tune from Ryan. What horsepower are they looking at? And ET and trap speed.
Well, John Ryan he has Bo White ported heads on his car. Rick Crawford had done his manifold originally, I think, and John's been 1090s, I think, at 126 miles an hour or something like that, with very minimal weight reduction and a drag pack. Power wise, going to vary on on the dyno. We've seen some guys 460s, some guys 480s on that setup. What did Shane Mitchell's make? I can't remember what his car made. That's one we did recently.
It was in the 480s also.
Yeah, with cutouts uncorked, I think it made in the
Yeah.
480s. So that's a pretty common place to be.
Zach said for Mike Nailway to get out of here.
They rough today.
No freebies in here, he said.
Boy.
Are there any street tires that my bone stock Z06 can use for better traction?
I honestly can't. I can't offer any input there. I don't know. Past the OE tire, I'm pretty much going to a drag radial or a slick. Maybe someone else can chime in with some info, but I honestly don't know that there's going to be anything better on a true hard street tire.
What's your best 60-foot time, Ryan?
126.
I'm not sure what he's asking here.
Probably.
Philip Davis joined.
What's
Jolly
up?
Solero. You looking at a Power Glide in the future?
I'm too heavy and I don't make enough power, and I don't think for a Power Glide. I think the 3-speed's going to benefit me more with what I do with my car and how it's set up.
What about that transmission we got in the warehouse?
No, that's a 2-speed 400 that we've got in stock. If anybody needs a 2-speed 400, shout out.
Low price of $10,000.
Well, it's a built to the hilt RPM. I don't even know what level RPM transmission. Jeremy Jones and those guys built that thing for us for a 2,000 horse or whatever turbo build that changed directions, and we got a 2-speed 400. So.
Bolt-ons, 4500 stall, 391s, ported manifold, flex fuel. What's a safe shot to spray?
I don't know if we're talking LS3. If we're talking LS, you could spray probably a couple hundred on there. Watch what the converter's doing though, because just because it's advertised at 4,500 doesn't mean that it's not flashing to 5,000, or it may flash to 3,500. Who knows? But look at what you're doing there, because the more power and torque you make with nitrous, the looser the converter's going to get. It may turn a 4,500 into 5,500. You just have to kind of. I start at 100 and creep up on it from there.
Slick versus radial on a heavy car like 5th gen.
Depends on the track. A radial is, I like a radial. I like the stability of the radial, and it's a fast tire. problem with the radial is it's heavy. It's just not as light as a slick. I think I don't know that there's going to be a lot of difference between a stiff wall slick and a drag radial on a heavy fit gen. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't tried both back to back at the track to tell you, but a stiff wall Mickey Thompson 28-10-5 slick is a light tire, and it's going to offer you more traction on more surface or varying surfaces. Lesser prep.
Philip had a good question there. We talk a lot about the stall. What about the size of the converter? 10 inch, 9, 8?
That's all relative to power capacity and what we're needing for a flash RPM, stall speed, whatever you want to call it on the converter. Typically your bigger power stuff's going to be more 10-inch converter stuff, and this NA stuff on these Turbo 400s and stuff we're doing, we're running 8-inch converters. The 9.5 inch, whatever the 245 millimeter circle D is what we run on a lot of the overdrive cam head cars, and we've been messing with a little bit of 258 millimeter stuff too. It all depends on the build. You can only get a certain amount of efficiency out of certain size converters. So, and I'm not a converter guru by any means. So, take it with a grain of salt, because I just know from what we've done and experienced with our builds.
LaTrevor said he has a 383 stroker. His cam, the lift, it's on a 607, 615. The duration is 280, 292. Will this be a good nitrous cam?
You might want to message in to us with a little bit more detail. Are we talking LS base, or are we talking small block Chevy, conventional small block stuff? And we need to know the lobe separation in the intake center line, the install center line, so we can, map out what the valve events really are to know how well this cam will work for you on nitrous. But you can shoot us an email at support@guatneyperformance.com, or email me at ryan@guatneyperformance.com, and we'll be happy to try to see how well it'll work for you in your combination.
Jay Yarborough said, can any gains be made to my 16 Z06 with tuning only?
There's a little bit there, but there's not a ton. You'll get some in some area of torque management and stuff, normally, like you would with any calibration, versus a factory calibration. But where it's really going to show up is when you start doing some bolt-on stuff. Something necessitating, some tuning. Otherwise, I don't know that would be. I would jump out and do that as my first mod.
Jason Beck's asking about trans coolers.
We for a lot of the coolers we use C-Trab, a very good quality cooler. They work well for us on our trans coolers, oil coolers for any kind, power steering, whatever you want to run through them. They work well, and they've got several size options that let you kind of package that to where you need it.
We also have a trans cooler kit on the website that
we do.
Comes complete with all the fittings, the lines, and everything that you need to do the install.
For the is that application specific to the Gen 5 Camaro, or is
as far as the lengths and all that of the lines that we?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 10-foot sectional line, but I guess you could.
And that's a Doral, I believe.
The D-rail, yeah.
And we, on our coolers, we don't run hose with hose clamps and stuff. There's a lot of times these transmissions run too much line pressure to trust a rubber hose and a worm gear clamp. We run AN hose with appropriate fittings to adapt a hard line to an AN fitting. We know it's more expensive, but it's the right way to do it.
Richard Kim said, thanks for answering my questions.
No problem, Richard.
Philip, have you seen any change in numbers on the forced induction setups by changing the charge pipe sizes compared to what the manufacturers like Procharger and ECS provide with the kits?
I haven't seen a whole lot there. Where we see the most difference is in the intercooler itself. We learned a lot on this air-to-air stuff over the last couple of years about how inefficient a lot of these intercoolers can be. 3-inch inlets and outlets, just absolutely choke these things when you get over, a lot of times when you get anything over a 10, 12 pound of boost on a D1 SC, it gets pretty restrictive in a hurry.
Looks like that may be about all the questions. Dan's been over here kind of looking like he's ready for us to stop talking. So,
You rushing us off?
No, you guys are good.
are you sure?
You guys are
Did you
good.
fall asleep?
No, wide awake.
So,
Well, if you guys
Sale
have
on
any
the
other,
website. The
yeah,
tax sale on the website.
tax
right
sale. How long is that thing running? Like a month or something?
now. Till the 15th of March.
Yeah,
So,
so-
time to file your taxes, get your money back.
There you
and
go.
Still,
Rapid refund.
if you get $8,000 in taxes back on the 16th, let me know and I'll extend the sale for you.
No, we've got a great sale going on our website. Check that out, GuatneyPerformance.com. If you guys have any questions, give us a shout, shoot us an email. It's hard for us to manage Facebook a lot of times. We're trying to tag team on these messages. We have such a volume of messages coming through. It's hard for us to keep up with on Facebook. Email and phone usually works the best for communication for us. We got a couple more questions here.
JR, I don't know. We didn't really toss around the idea yet of having a racing event. We do the private track rentals for tuning, but what would you think about that, Brian?
I thought about that. The problem is, it so much goes into that, and at the rate we've been growing, it's hard to even keep up right now with what we're doing, and promoting an event like that that'd be quite taxing, and I don't know that we could pull that off right now. It would be fun to do. I just don't know if we could pull it off without killing each other.
A lot of thanks coming in.
We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the questions, and we like sharing this information. The best of our knowledge. I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy or I'm any kind of guru, but if I can answer a question, I'll answer it with my opinion and with my experience that I've encountered. So, Dyno Day, that's something else we've thought about. We just don't have a ton of room where we're at right now, but I haven't really counted that out. We'll kind of figure something out on that maybe one of these
Just kind of
days.
tossing that around lately as an idea.
Yeah. So, yeah, race event. We try. As far as a race event, Camaro Fest is a big deal for us. A lot of our customer base is Camaro guys. Whether it's Gen 5, Gen 6, and even 4th Gen guys, and we really have grown to love that event. And we love being a part of that. And, sponsor that thing every year and work with Mike Lee on that. And we're actually sponsoring the drag racing event this year. We'll be giving out some trophies and stuff for the drag classes. So that's as close to we're getting as promoting an event right now.
As soon as Dan designs those trophies, of course.
I'm working on that.
We're waiting on Dan pretty much.
As usual.
We're just waiting on Dan.
If the live feed started at 3:01 today, it was because we were waiting on Dan.
It started at 3.
Okay.
It did. I was watching. Okay, well, if you guys don't have any questions, we're going to bounce out of here. If you think of
Third
anything,
Tuesday of next month for the next one.
third Tuesday of
The
next month.
for live.
There you
next
go.
live.
For the next live feed. And I want to try to get a little information out a little sooner next time, maybe, but we want to try to get this thing consistently on the same day where you guys know it's like your favorite TV show you tune into, except for it's probably not your favorite show. So.
Maybe.
Give us a shout if you need anything. We appreciate you guys.